Gators Breakdown, episode 34. We are live and ready to go. Episode 34, we're going to talk about these juniors that are leaving or staying at Florida for their senior seasons, or they're deciding to go on to the NFL. We'll talk about that a little bit here on this episode of Gators Breakdown. I am your host, David Waters. You can find me on Twitter at GatorDave_SEC, at GatorDave_SEC. You can find Gators Breakdown in a myriad of ways for your listening pleasure here on YouTube. If you're checking it out live, you can get it there, or audio versions on SoundCloud and TuneIn Radio for those there who don't want to use all their data and just listen to the audio version, or don't want to see my ugly face on YouTube on that platform. You can just listen to it on those platforms, SoundCloud and TuneIn Radio. You can also follow us on Twitter at Gators Breakdown, or on Facebook at Gators Breakdown. I share a lot of my content there, a lot of my thoughts there. So give us a follow there. Leave some reviews on those social media sites and all those podcasting sites as well. So we had some decisions made. This is a Wednesday night podcast, so of course we're still waiting for a couple more, but we'll go ahead and start with the good news. Duke Dawson, one of Florida's juniors, considering going to the NFL draft, he'll be back for his senior season. So that'd be some good news for the Gators. That was Tuesday afternoon, where Duke Dawson announced that he would come back for his senior season, and posted on Twitter, quote, boy, after sitting with my parents and coaches, this is one of the toughest decisions in my life at this point. After a great season and many more to come, I will be returning for my senior season. That from Duke Dawson. We kind of didn't really know what we're going to get with Duke Dawson going into this year. We knew he was going to be the starting nickel back with two great corners on the outside in Tabor and Quincy Wilson. But with his stats, I mean, he totaled 24 tackles, 3.5 for loss, 1 interception, 7 pass breakups, and a forced fumble. Specifically remember the Georgia game, where probably his best overall game from start to finish. Had some good plays in the second half that helped control that game. So Pro Football Focus site I follow a good bit to get some good stats there. They kind of dive in to some other stats you don't see. According to them, Duke Dawson surrendered an opposing QB rating of 64.6 this past season. That's 8th lowest among all slot corners. So Duke Dawson, like I mentioned, we didn't know what we were going to get with him. I think he exceeded expectations coming into this season. I think he was really helped by Tabor and Wilson in a way, but probably seeing him targeted more than those guys, just because you're not going to throw toward Quincy Wilson and Jalen Tabor that much. You have to go dive in deep into those numbers and see how it all shook out with the who was throwing out the most and kind of the numbers there. But his 8th lowest among all slot corners, that's a pretty good stat there. So I think he exceeded expectations. But him coming back, what helps the Gators for sure, but it also helps him. He'll be slid out to the outside now. He'll be one of the main cornerbacks going into next year. It would help his draft stock to be one of the main corners instead of a slot corner. He'll improve his draft stock by coming back. If he proves that he can continue the great tradition that we've seen from these Florida Gator cornerbacks lately with Hargraves, Tabor, and Wilson. So you kind of of course. I'm not breaking any news here. So, Quincy Wilson, he did decide to go. 6'1", 215 pounds, great NFL size. Of course, Jalen Tabor got all the headlines coming into this season with his talk and his play. But Quincy Wilson, every bit of it's just as good as Jalen Tabor. Really improved his draft stock and has the potential to be selected in the first round. If you look at some mocks, he's actually slated to be picked ahead of Jalen Tabor. So Wilson was a 2014 member of the class, I think. So, one of just 2 players to start in every game this season. One of only 2 players to start every game for the Florida Gators in 2016. David Sharp being the other. Racked up 33 tackles, 3.5 for loss. Sack, 3 interceptions, 6 pass breaks up, breakups, the quarterback hurry. We all remember the pick six he had in the Missouri game, the one great sideline interception where he kind of tiptoed, kind of one-handed interception against Kentucky. Quincy Wilson also, like Duke Dawson, kind of exceeded expectations this year for the Gators. So, with Tabor, like as I mentioned, he was getting all the praise and all the hype coming into this season, but Quincy Wilson, every good as bit as Tabor. Quincy Wilson coming in, there were some out there who thought he could only be a safety at Florida and not even play cornerback in college. Now he's projected to be a first-round pick. And some, like I mentioned, some scouts have him as the top cornerback in the draft. And at 6'1", 213, perfect size for the NFL. Big-bodied. That's what they're looking for in the NFL. We saw Vernon Hargreaves this past season kind of struggle, probably more than likely with his size in the NFL. Not that he's not good. He'll get better with some more technique, kind of have to make up for his size. But Quincy Wilson has a size NFL teams are looking for at 6'1", 213. So as I mentioned, this is a Wednesday night podcast. And as of now, since we're talking about the secondary, Jalen Tabor, Tease Tabor, still has not declared for the NFL. I still would expect him to. Not really sure what's taking so long for him to announce. But as of Wednesday night, he still has not, as I'm recording this podcast. So kind of what does that mean for the Gators secondary next year? I kind of hit on it now, but Duke Dawson definitely be one of the starting cornerbacks. Now, does Chauncey Gardner get a look at the other starting cornerback position? You also have Joseph Putu and the freshman, Marco Wilson, Quincy Wilson's little brother, Elijah Blades, if his commitment sticks. I know we probably want to see Nick Washington and Marcel Harris as the starters at safety. So to get Gardner and his playmaking ability on the field, does he take over the other cornerback spot? I think it'll be interesting to see how all that shakes out there. The other junior we have on the defensive side of the ball that we haven't heard from is Caleb Brantley. Don't necessarily know what's taking long there. If you listen to our podcast a couple weeks ago, Joey V joins me, and he kind of hinted at he maybe had heard Brantley would really be deciding. It would be a tough decision for him to make if he was going to go to the NFL or not. So that might be what's kind of delaying this decision a little bit. We're not really sure. I'm pretty sure if he was going to go, we would, if he was really sure, we'd hear by now. So don't necessarily know what the holdup is there. But I'm sure we'll hear something. Like as I mentioned, this is a Wednesday night podcast. We'll hear something in the next couple of days with Tabor and Brantley. The other defensive player who has declared to go would be Alex Anzalone. I can't necessarily blame the linebacker there. He had an up and down career at Florida, but mostly just because he couldn't stay healthy for an extended period of time. He managed to do that better this past year, but and heartbreaking. The Arkansas game was so tough for Florida in a myriad of ways of just how they showed up to play, and then all the injuries. Jared Davis and Alex Anzalone also went down in that game. To end his season, it was 8th game of the season. Yeah, the week after Georgia, Alex Anzalone went down again, was never able to play again this past season for Florida. Still finished third on the team in tackles with 53 after missing 5 games and a good bit of a 6 game. 4 tackles for loss, 3 sacks, 2 pass breakups, 6 quarterback hurries, and a fumble recovery. He'll have to test well at the combine to earn a high draft pick. I'm not sure that's in his cards right now, but to me, there was really no sense in him trying to take another risk of an injury coming back to Florida. He gets injured again maybe, and it's not necessarily, I'm not saying career ending as an injury, but if he gets another injury, or NFL teams just really going to be looking at, this guy can't stay healthy. We're not going to waste a pick, or definitely a high pick, on a guy who can't stay healthy. So, one more season to, not really get hurt at Florida. If he tests well, maybe I see just because of the injuries, a 3rd rounder. But we'll see. He doesn't have a lot of tape to show because of all his injuries, but the tape he gets to show is really, really good. I think if you go back to last year, look, Anzalone was starting over Jerry Davis before the season, before he got hurt in those first couple games in 2015. So the injury concerns will scare some teams away. But if they watch the film, they're gonna see a good linebacker. So, of course, the silver lining there, we know Jerry Davis is gone. Anzalone was hurt. So with all the injuries, we got to see David Reeves, Kylan Johnson, Deshaun Joseph play some meaningful games and some snaps. So this loss, it does hurt Florida. I would have liked to see Anzalone come back just for a personal preference, and I'm sure the Gators would have too. But you can't blame him. So we got to see all those young guys play because of him being out. And expect Jeremiah Moon, a guy I'm really high on, to get some good looks this spring, and he'll be right there with all those young guys as well, making plays. So move over to the offensive side of the ball. David Sharp declared for the NFL draft. True Jr. was the only other player, as I mentioned before. Quincy Wilson as well, that they were the only two players on this team to start every game of 2016. Three-year career at Florida, played in 33 games, started 26 started 26 over the last two seasons. I mean, he's got the size. He could test very well. I know some people were surprised he declared for the draft. Preseason, I really thought he was going to. I didn't see him coming back. Not that I thought he would have a great season. I thought he'd have a good enough season. And if you remember, DJ Humphries kind of a few years ago under Will Muschamp kind of surprised some people by declaring for the draft and was a first-round pick. I'm not saying David Sharp's going to be a first-round pick, but it only takes that one team. He's going to test well at the combine with his size and athleticism. 6'6", 357. Mike could probably lose some weight. He really struggled with speed rushers, but if he lost some weight, he might can improve there. Not sure why Florida didn't press more for him to lose some weight. But there's not a lot of guys that size that can move like him. So does somebody take a chance on him early? I don't think so. You're not going to see him in the first round. Second round is the highest ceiling I see for him. But you could say he should have stayed, and he's not ready. Probably pretty good run blocker, but as I mentioned, struggled a good bit. We've seen it plenty of times where he couldn't pass protect a good defensive end. So we'll see what happens there. And with David Sharp, it's probably, you could say it was 50-50. I thought he would go, but it is what it is. Good for him. Got to watch him a good bit when he was here in Jacksonville. He played basketball too. He's a good basketball player. So good for him. A good local guy from here in Jacksonville, going to go make some NFL money. And kind of a surprise that we got on Tuesday as well. We got all these decisions that I'm talking about now, the day after the Outback Bowl on Tuesday. But one kind of surprise was Cameron Dillard to graduate, and he will transfer from Florida. He was the starting center coming into this past season. Suffered that knee injury against Arkansas. I mentioned Anzalone getting hurt in the Arkansas game, Jared Davis as well. But Dillard, he got hurt in that game as well. So that game took a toll on these Gators and some of these guys that are leaving the program. TJ McCoy took over after Tyler Jordan got hurt the next week against South Carolina. And TJ McCoy didn't look back. He grabbed a hold of that starting center job. And you could definitely see the way he played. He put himself in position to keep that job. So Cameron Dillard, probably saw the writing on the wall. Going to go, you see this grad transfer stuff a lot. So good for him to want to go continue his career and get some playing time. Go get some more playing time somewhere. He can improve his draft stock and go into the NFL next year by going to go get some more playing time somewhere else. So I started 8 games this past season, 19 in his career. You could say he was a little processed in just the way the Florida offensive line may shake out. Of course, like as I mentioned, McCoy's play was probably the biggest factor. You hear some good things about Brett Heggie and the way he's growing. But for us, Florida's recruiting better among the offensive line right now. The names you have heard that they've coming in with recruits, Kelleon Hebert may be coming as well. You have some guys out there who are going to be coming in or for Florida that can really just step up. That really could, probably maybe have impacted the decision for Cameron Dillard. So it's we'll see. It's not necessarily a bad move for him going. And trying to look for some of these names there for Kadeem Telford, TJ Moore, who they got Christmas Day, of course, and the names there who could come in and definitely get some more depth among that offensive line. So maybe Dillard saw, the writing on the wall. I think they did a thing earlier this year, did a story on him. He probably did the right thing for him and his family. He has a daughter as well. I think that was adopted after they lost a kid. So can't blame a guy for going out and trying to better himself. Needs to be a starter somewhere next year. Could be a backup center in the NFL. Just to see if he can add some more strength somewhere. So if you look at the offensive line next year and what may happen along those lines, as far as a starting lineup goes in a depth chart, right tackle, left tackle, I think, could you move Juwan Taylor to left tackle with the way his experience? I think Ivy may get the first look, see if he lives up to his 5-star billing there, and maybe move him at left tackle from left guard there. We'll see. I'm not necessarily sure how that will shake out with Taylor having more experience at tackle than Ivy, but Ivy will get a shot there at left tackle first, I believe. Left guard, I think Tyler Jordan, Kavaris Harkless, that may shake out there. Right guard, Fred Johnson again. Brett Heggie may fit in there, to get him on the field a little bit more, because TJ McCoy is going to be the starting center for sure with Heggie, Tyler Jordan, maybe backing him up. So these guys and the inside guys can move around a good bit and try different positions. So I mentioned, just names now among the offensive line: Martez Ivy, TJ McCoy, Fred Johnson, Juwan Taylor, Kavaris Harkless, Tyler Jordan. Those could be your main cogs among the offensive line. Then guys we didn't get to see too much of: Nick Buchanan, Brandon Sandifer, Stone Forsyth, Brett Heggie, Richard Desir Jones, Antonio Riles, Andrew Mike. All those names there. Some transfer. Some guys may transfer from that. Like I mentioned, Florida's numbers now under Jim McElwain along the offensive line are much better than what they were when he came in. So Florida has numbers there. They're going to recruit probably, looking at 2 4-stars now, probably 3, maybe 4 4-stars along the offensive line coming in to this recruiting class. So Florida will have options there among the offensive line. So the loss of Cameron Dillard, it is for depth reasons a little bit of a hit, but I don't think you will notice too much the absence of Cameron Dillard. But good for him going to go and further his career somewhere else. So I still mentioned Wednesday night, we're still waiting on the decisions of Jalen Tabor and Caleb Brantley, what their decisions will be moving forward. I'm sure we'll hear Thursday or Friday what's going to happen with those guys. So this has been, a kind of surprise episode of Gators Breakdown. Just had a lot to talk about. Just wanted to go ahead and, with all these juniors making their decisions and stuff, get another episode out there and give you guys something to listen to there. So episode 34 about these juniors making their NFL decisions. Thanks for listening. You can find us on Gators Breakdown on Twitter and on Facebook. And you can find me, David Waters, on Twitter as well, at GatorDave_SEC. And we can talk some Gator football anytime you want there. So interact with me if you want. If you want to talk about something on Twitter, we can do that too. I can mention it in the show. Get some interaction there, question or something. Start doing some more interaction. This time of year, there's no games to talk about, so we can look at more content to put out there. And some of you guys want to throw some questions away or any comments or anything you want to talk about, we can get that stuff out there. So episode 34 of Gators Breakdown. That's going to be the episode for the day about these juniors making their decisions. So for David Waters on Gators Breakdown, I'll see you guys later.